the TIMFD podcast. Today is my favorite day is about appreciating every day as it comes, no matter what life throws at us. We hope that this podcast speaks to you. And if it does, please like, share, and comment. Now let's find out why today is our favorite day this week.
Hi guys, today is my favorite day. I have Pastor Mark here. He is in charge of Harbor University as our associate pastor here at the Harbor Church. Now Mark is going to be getting into a study. He already did Genesis part 1, which is chapters 1 through 10. Can you tell me a little bit about that? And then we'll get into the second that's going to go through the summer. But there's a reason why you wanted our church to learn about Genesis. And I'd like to kind of get into that. And we'll just kind of go through
Sure. We've already covered the first 11 chapters of Genesis, and that was the Adamic period.
Okay.
So obviously we see a description of the earth being void and empty. There was water. It was just a big globe of water hanging in space. But the Spirit of the Lord moved on the face of the waters. And anywhere that the Spirit of the Lord is, there's creative power.
Yeah.
And that's what happened. He began to create. He spoke the planets into existence, the moon, the sun, the stars, mankind.
It's amazing.
The land masses, he brought them from nothing.
Right.
And he created a perfect garden for Adam. And then the one thing that God said, remember how he goes through the creative process saying, and I saw this and it was good. And he did this and it was good. And he did something else and that was good.
Jesus.
And then he said, this isn't good. And he was talking about Adam being by himself.
Yes.
And so he said, I've got to create a helpmeet and someone to not be behind him or before him, but to be by his side to go through this with him. And so Eve came into being. Bone of Adam's bone, flesh of Adam's flesh.
Yes.
And everything was good for a long time. Adam got to name all the animals. I still can't understand why he let the Lord create cats, but it's sorry, Tanya.
I wonder too.
So sorry, Tanya. I know you're a cat person.
Yeah.
But so he named all the animals, which shows us that Adam had a creative role in God's creation.
Yes.
He had a place.
Yes.
He was a caretaker of all of creation.
Yeah.
That's the kind of relationship that God had with mankind at that point. And it was only when, we listened to the serpent, which we shouldn't have done, and broke the only prohibition that God put on mankind.
And I appreciate you saying we, because really Adam and Eve get beat up for all this stuff. But all of us, any of us would have done, and because of our sin nature, would have done that. So I appreciate you saying that.
I agree.
Yeah. And so you went through that study.
We went through it, yep.
And there's a transition chapter, correct, that you're going to be starting with, or did you end with in your study?
Actually, we ended with it last time. Okay. That's chapter 12.
Okay.
But we're going to start again with 12.
Okay.
So we'll cover 12 again.
Okay. Going through that transition.
Yes, going through the transition where we're shifting from the Adamic covenant to the Abrahamic covenant.
So from Adam to Abraham, basically.
Yes.
Okay,
exactly.
so now the study that you guys are going to do this summer is pretty big.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty large.
Yeah.
The goal that you want everyone that's going to take this class, what's the ultimate goal you want to get out of the people taking this class first? And then we'll get into the things.
I want each of the students to leave here knowing mankind's relationship to the Creator God.
Yeah.
And because everything that we believe, everything that we practice comes out of that relationship, that covenant relationship that we have with Jehovah. It's a major deal.
Mm-hmm. And then how does that tie? Does Genesis tie anything to Jesus? I mean, how does that all work?
It does. It's a matter of fact, and you and I were talking about this earlier. Genesis is a redemptive story above everything else.
Yes, it is, yeah.
Very basic, but it's redemptive. It's all about God making measures so that we can be redeemed. You know, the scripture tells us that Jesus is the Lamb that was slain from before the foundations of the earth were even laid.
Yes. Yeah, before what you talked about.
So before God spoke the first thing into being, he knew that Jesus would someday have to hang on a cross.
Yes.
To redeem mankind.
Yes. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
So it's very important to have Genesis down for your own study. If you're going to be reading the Bible on a daily basis, growing in your faith, keeping that word of God and praying, Genesis is real important for you to have down so you can understand the rest of the Bible. Is that something you're saying?
I completely agree. And the thing that I loved about reading through Genesis when I started doing it at a very early age is it taught me about the nature of God, about his personality, about how he does things, about what his expectations are for me. I got all of that out of the book of Genesis.
Wow, I love that.
And it's just so important that we understand God because it helps us love him better. It helps us serve him better.
Yes, and I want to go over something with Abraham. So can you kind of talk a little bit about how this Abrahamic covenant even came to be, and what Abraham and his wife went through on this? Because some of it is pretty laughable. Some of it's pretty funny. And so,
yeah, I think I know which part you're talking about. Yeah. So Abram, he wasn't Abraham yet. No. That came later. Yep. And Sarai, his wife, were just kind of minded in their own business, and the calendar was flipping, month to month. They were aging.
Yes, they were.
God called Abram to be his servant and to obey him when he was 99 years old.
It's crazy.
Now, I don't know about you, but I'm going to be 70 in July. I'm not looking to go out and start a new career.
No.
Or start a new nation.
With a new family, I know.
So just unbelievable. And the part that you and I were enjoying talking about a little bit earlier was that he was 99 and he was promised a son.
It's crazy.
And Sarah overheard this and she's like, dude, I'm 89.
Yeah.
I ain't having no babies.
Yeah, laughing.
And she laughed about it.
Yeah,
she laughed about it.
That's not going to happen.
And when she was confronted by the Lord, you laughed. When I said you were going to have a son. No, I didn't. And that's
I never do that.
That's silly how people are. We think we can hide things from the Lord. No,
it's denial. It's our denial. We try to hide from omnipresent, omnipotent, omniscient God.
Sure.
And that's something I think that I know you guys will go through on that too. But as far as the covenant, he's told that he's going to have a son. Oh, the son was named Isaac. God laughs or laughter or whatever.
Son of laughter.
Son of laughter.
Yeah.
And so here he has a sense of humor saying you're going to call your son this, son of laughter. So that covenant, I must admit, and I don't know if you would have, but if someone told me that, I would have laughed too. I would go, are you insane? This is nuts, and I know my nature would probably go that direction and then go, oops, what am I doing? Why am I saying this to God, So the Abrahamic covenant, we have Abraham. You're going to talk about how that name got changed, their names got changed.
And why.
Kind of stuff.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And then we're going to look at the patriarchs. Now, who are the patriarchs? What's this all about?
The patriarchs are the main characters in Genesis that God worked through to establish that redemptive plan that we talked about, which of course is the advent of Jesus.
Yes.
In fact, God tells Abraham very early on, he was still Abram at that point, through you, all nations of the earth are going to be blessed.
Crazy.
Of course, that was a direct messianic reference.
Yes, it was.
That was a reference to the coming of Jesus.
Yes, it was.
Thousands of years before it would ever happen.
It's crazy. So you have Abraham, Sarah. Next in line would have been Isaac, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
What's the big story about Isaac? Just thinking about him in general.
Of course, I think the thing that will spring to everybody's mind is the fact that they did have that son.
Yes, they did.
And Abraham loved him dearly.
Yeah.
Just really loved him. And then God decided to test and understand that faith was really not a thing that was deeply required yet. What was deeply required was obedience.
Obedience, yeah. Yeah, to obey is better than sacrifice, as you see in the Old Testament.
And when God said, I want you to take Isaac up on the mountain, and I want you to prepare an altar, and I want you to put Isaac on that altar.
Yeah.
And I cannot imagine being having my son be in the place of Isaac, and me being in place of Abraham. I can't imagine ever being faced with that kind of a
obedience
requirement,
offering, sacrifice, all in the same story.
Right. Right.
Yeah. And then we're not going to tell what happened. Obviously, he's going to get more in detail. You're going to be in total detail of this. You're going to hear a lot of different views of people and thoughts of where different theologians have been. This is what Pastor Mark does.
We're going to talk about how God provided.
Oh, yes.
Even though Abraham didn't know that yet.
Yeah. Isn't that wild?
That means that ram had to start up the other side of the mountain when Abraham started up his side.
Yeah, and so the picture is here's Isaac and Abraham coming up here, and God had already supplied a ram to come up here and get caught in the thicket where he was being at the altar to basically offer up his son.
We have to trust God's plans, even if we don't understand his commands. And understanding is not necessary. And obedience is.
Exactly. And that means the trusting and obedience of his plan for our family, for our marriage, for our finances,
our
health, our future.
Yep.
Wow. Okay. So this is going to be a very practical study. And so make sure that, you understand that it's going to be practical and theological. And that's going to be the combination that's going to be a little fun here. Mm-hmm. All right. So we have Isaac. Who do we go from there?
Jacob.
Jacob, okay. And what's so big deal about Jacob?
Jacob is, he was a thief and a liar.
And yet God still used him.
And yet he's one of the patriarchs. You'll remember, doubtless, that Jacob is the one that cheated his brother Esau out of his birthright.
Yes, he did. It's crazy.
What a creep.
Are you guys going to go over that?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Okay,
awesome.
Yeah,
we'll talk about all of that.
That's funny. All right, well, that's going to be good.
We're going to take a look at as many of the theological aspects of these characters as we possibly can with the time we have.
Wasn't it Jacob the one that wrestled with God too?
Yes, yep, and he would not. He refused to let the Lord go, and the Lord had to cripple him. He broke his hip.
Yeah, isn't that wild?
And he walked with a limp for the rest of his life. That's one way to remember God.
Yeah, no kidding. And sometimes some of us have to experience that too.
Yeah.
And in our lives that, not listening, not obeying, doing our own thing. And it may not be total explicit disobedience.
No. I mean, how stubborn did Jacob have to be to hang on all night?
It's crazy.
Yeah.
And so you're going to be looking at that. Then after Jacob would be coming who? Joseph, okay. And that's really around chapter 36-ish?
Yeah, something like
37, something like that. So the last part of that book, that very large book, is a large part of Joseph.
Mm-hmm.
And why is Joseph such a big deal? So you have Abram and Sarai and Abraham, Sarah, who didn't really totally trust God at first. I mean, they went, really, you're going to do this story, And then you said that it was Isaac, and Isaac was almost put up on an altar, to be sacrificed. You have, and there's much more with Isaac. Then you have Jacob, and like you said, he's a thief and a liar and everything else, and God still used him. So he's using these people, and now he comes to Joseph, and Joseph's a little different. At the beginning of his story, I don't know if he's coming across arrogant, or if he's just coming across that God told me this is what's going to go on in a dream. I don't know, but it seems like his brothers thought he was arrogant. Because what was going on at that story?
Well, and I to give the brothers a little slack, I think that any time that you deal with somebody that is walking in righteousness before God and is hearing his voice, you're going to think that person is arrogant.
Yes.
Absolutely. When they make pronouncements.
That's what I was thinking.
Because you just don't get it.
Yeah. I know. And it's a little brother.
Yeah.
Which made it even worse for all these brothers to look and go, really?
Right.
I guess the dreams were that you're going to bow down to me, basically. And they're going, don't think so.
In your dreams, pal.
Yeah. And then they were pretty abrupt about what they were going to do with him.
Yeah. It's he had angered them and alienated them to the point where they began to talk about killing him.
It's crazy.
It's nuts. And it was one of the brothers intervened, and that's the only reason. Well, we know it was God that intervened.
Yes, of course,
but it was through the agency of one of the brothers,
Reuben,
that he was sold into slavery. And I got to tell you, every time I read Joseph's story, I think, okay, I'd have given up there. I'd have given up here. Oh, I would have so given up right there.
Absolutely.
I would have bailed on God right there. I would have been railing at him already. Hey, what are you doing? You're supposed to be my God.
Yeah, because here he is. His brothers are trying to kill him. Then they say, well, we'll put him into slavery, sell him.
Yep.
He goes into slavery. He gets bought by a guy, Potiphar, right?
Right.
And then Potiphar, what happened at Potiphar's house? Because he was doing really well
Potiphar
at first.
apparently was not paying attention to his wife. He'd neglected her, and so she thought, well, fine. I've got this attractive
he's
male
supposed to be a good-looking
slave
guy.
in the household. I'll just use him instead of my husband.
That's right.
And the incredible thing is that Joseph was a man of godly character.
Yeah.
Even after everything he'd been through, he trusted God. He believed in the covenant relationship that he knew existed between him and God. And he relied on that.
Yep.
And when things would go badly for him, like I said, I'd have given up. I'd have bailed. But not Joseph.
Nope.
He's like, nope, I'm trusting Jehovah.
And he ran. When that woman wanted to sexually connect with him, I mean, she literally tore off.
Yeah, she got a hold of his coat, and he spun out of it as he was running away.
And he fled. It says that he fled. I always joke, my brother and I would always joke, flee, flee, flee. That was kind of the joke. And so he got out of there.
Yeah.
But then she was able to accuse him of rape, and then...
Because she had his coat.
Yes. And so then now he's put into prison.
Yep.
Didn't do anything. And he's put into prison. And then in prison, what happens?
The favor of the Lord is still on Joseph.
Yep.
I know it doesn't look like it with everything that's going on, but he had God's favor.
He sure did.
God's hand was on him. And even as a prisoner, he began to distinguish himself, and he rose to be somebody who is actually helping manage the prison.
Yep.
And, incredible.
Amazing.
Just absolutely incredible. And he made a deal with a couple of the king's servants that had been thrown into prison.
Yep.
And he said, look, I'll interpret your dreams for you. And when you get to the Pharaoh, just remember me to the Pharaoh.
Yes.
Just mention my name.
Yeah, just a little
Just
bit.
name drop,
Yeah.
and
Help
maybe
me out here.
Maybe the Pharaoh will pull me up out of here.
Give me a crumb.
And the interesting thing about it was he told them the truth.
Yes.
He said, you're going to be restored. You're going to get your position back. You'll be the king's cupbearer again.
Yep.
And to the baker, he said, the Pharaoh is going to lift your head from off your shoulders.
You're going to be done.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's exactly what happened.
And so he was not a people pleaser.
No. And that's the cool part. And that's the other thing, you're going to see how character traits work in all this.
Absolutely.
So you got, this non-people pleaser speaks God's truth and says, this is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And that happened. But still, the guy that got out of prison
forgot
about him completely for like a couple of years. It's unbelievable. I would have been sitting there going, are you kidding me?
That's human nature.
Yeah, it is. And so finally the guy goes, oh gosh, wait a second. You got some dreams, King. I know a guy.
Yeah.
I know a guy who was in prison. Sorry,
Exactly.
I forgot about him, but I know about him.
Exactly.
And so the king gives him these dreams, and then what happens with that?
The cupbearer mentioned, hey, I know a guy.
Yep.
And so he said, really? Where is he? Well, he's in your prisons.
Yeah.
What's he doing in there? Get him out of there. So they brought him to Pharaoh. Pharaoh shared the dreams with Joseph, and Joseph said, "Oh, King, I know exactly what's going on here." And that's where he foretold the times of famine.
That's right.
And
7 years.
The 7 skinny cows coming up out of the river and eating the 7 fat cows. And
because the first ones were the fat cows.
Yeah.
And then it was kind of grotesque when you read it.
The skinny ones came up and ate them. Yeah. So Joseph definitely was given the true word, and he delivered that to Pharaoh. And Pharaoh was so impressed that he could tell. And we see this all through the Old Testament. These kings that go, well, my gosh, your God is with you, and he's a great God.
Yep.
And so he begins to look for opportunities to promote Joseph.
Yeah.
And Joseph ends up being second only to Pharaoh.
Amazing.
In all of Egypt.
Amazing. He saw the
incredible.
gifting he had. He also saw the gifting that God gave him, and that he had God's. Basically, he was a listening ear to what God was speaking.
Right.
And so, and what we know by the story is that those 7 great years went great, and Joseph was a good businessman, and he was able to hold off grain and get that all ready, get everything prepared. And when that famine hit, no one else prepared themselves, and therefore they had to go to him to purchase grain. And he started collecting everything for Pharaoh. I mean, they were owning everything.
Yeah, isn't it interesting that the famine even hit Israel and devastated them?
Yes.
Everybody in the Middle East was going to Egypt because they were the only ones that had grain.
Correct. And so that's how Joseph then runs into his brothers.
Yep.
And the dream that was talked about
and prophecy
long ago,
is fulfilled.
It's fulfilled. Yes, they eventually had to literally, bow down to him, and then he told them who he was, and they were blessed.
But they were scared.
They were scared. They thought they
thought he's going to kill us.
Yeah, they thought the minute Jacob, they thought that Jacob, Joseph's father, he was old. The minute he died, they thought that Joseph was going to come and kill them all. And that's not what his heart wasn't there. He knew he was called, right?
Yeah.
He knew you guys didn't put me here. It was God who put me in these positions.
Right. Yep.
He put me here just for this.
Yep.
And he talks about that story a lot, Esther and those kind of things. You see that a lot, right?
Yep.
So there's the story in a nutshell. This is one little part of this kind of whole study, and you're going to get a lot more into it, correct? I mean, obviously. Is there anything else you want to bring up to everybody? We're running out of time. So anything else you would like to remind them after we went through those things so they can remember what they're going to get into, which I think would be the covenant side of things?
I just really want to, we're going to focus a lot on the role of covenant.
Okay.
Because that's why God lifted up Abraham. That's why he sent them a son. That's why he lifted Jacob up, even after the terrible things he had done.
Yeah.
It's why he blessed the nation of Israel with Joseph.
Yes.
And lifted Joseph up. It was through covenant.
Yep.
Because God is a God who does not lie. He's not a man that he should lie.
Nope.
And he changeth not.
Yep.
So, and that is all consistent with his role in the covenant that he has with us.
He's an immutable God, never changing God. And we always want to stay focused on that, that's for sure. Okay, thank you. Can't wait for the study to begin. It's going to start on June 5th here at the church.
Yes.
And if you want to sign up for that, you can sign up on the communication card. You can sign up on the app itself. And if you're watching this outside of the Tampa Bay area, you can sign up by going to the Harbor Church app. I'll put the link there. There are some people who watch this thing, watch it online.
Yes.
So you can watch it online from a different state if you would like.
Yes.
And be a part of this study that's going to go from June 5th for 12 weeks right through the summer. It's going to be a great study. And Alex, our producer here, will be involved with that and helping you in leading all that, and as far as all the technical side. So, feel free to do this. This is what we want to do. We want to teach people.
Yes.
We want our people to learn and grow and be able to see the entire Bible for what it is, that redemptive story of our saving grace that we have through that Messiah, Jesus Christ.
We just want them to love God and love others better.
And it'd be an awesome thing. Well, today is my favorite day. I hope it's yours. Thank you again. Hey, guys, look for next week. Can't wait for another podcast. Take it easy.
Thank you for listening to TIMFD, Today is My Favorite Day. Views, comments, and opinions are those of the host and guest alone. TIMFD is produced and directed by Alex Korn. Thank you for listening. Have a great day, live intentionally, and be very blessed.